Hey everyone, greetings. It's Naomi Wolf, and I'm here. It's been a while since I've done the last Geneva Bible reading, but I'm here tonight, Sunday night, to share Numbers 21 of the 1560 Geneva Bible. Loki is off the cases on my lap because he likes to sit and hang out with us while I'm podcasting. And we're actually trapped. It's pretty weird. Brian and I are in an unspecified area of Brooklyn. The blizzard, quote unquote, right now it looks like snow, is underway outside. And our Islamist communist mayor, Zoran Mamdani, has issued a press conference, which is pretty scary in my view, in which he's said that the bridges and tunnels are closed. There's a state of emergency. You can't drive your vehicle outside at all. He's saying stay indoors. Don't go outside to eat at a restaurant downstairs. Kids are not going to school on Monday. Okay, that's fine. But in all the time I've lived in New York, I've certainly never had an Islamist communist mayor say, don't drive. You're not allowed to move around the city. At the same time, I understand that city buses are moving around the city, but just as a veteran or whatever, survivor, I don't know what you want to call it, because obviously we were not hurt or injured except for breathing the horrible toxic emissions. But as someone who was around right after 9/11, and lived pretty close to 9/11 at that time in 2001, it makes me very nervous that an Islamist mayor who's appointing people who overtly say they hate the United States and who have ties to Hamas and ties to funders of Hamas and so on are physically in charge of the city right now and have basically said you can't get out. It's maybe everything's fine, but as a kind of conditioning event, I don't like it. It makes me feel vulnerable. It makes me feel unsafe. I mean, one reason I worked hard to get a place outside the city after the experience of coming home to 9/11, my family lived through it, is that I never wanted to feel like I can't get out of the city. I have nowhere to go. I can't leave the city. I can't take my family out of the city. It's an island, and it's very, very, very vulnerable. So it's snow. It's a blizzard. There have been blizzards in New York for, as long as there's been recorded human history. There used to be much deeper snow and more severe blizzards in the 19th century. Anyone who studies the history of the city has seen photographs dating back to, since photography began in the city, showing feet of snow in Central Park, feet of snow. And that was normal. And if you read, Laura Ingalls Wilder books, Little House on the Prairie, Little House in the Deep Woods, Americans used to deal with snow and blizzards. And in my own lifetime, it would snow. There would be deep snow, blizzards. It was uncomfortable. People had to dig themselves out, but it wasn't a catastrophe. The reason I bring this up is that Mamdani, I'm going somewhere with this. Mamdani has also declared a state of emergency. Now, that's not a trivial thing, and it doesn't just have to do with, a severe weather event. It literally is a legal status, and it's a very dangerous legal status, as I've warned you since my book, The End of America, which came out in 2007, because when you declare a state of emergency, it means civil law is suspended. The person who declares the state of emergency gets to impose emergency law, which is often martial law. So maybe nothing like that will happen, but it's a very dark, scary precedent that, less than 2 months after this man took office, we don't have the protection of normal civil law in New York because it's snowing, because there is snowfall, because there might be a blizzard. It's a dumb reason to trot out a state of emergency. A state of emergency is 9/11, or nuclear attack or the plague, right? And I don't mean COVID. I mean, actual bubonic plague. That would be a state of emergency. A blizzard, does not require a state of emergency. There's one last thing that I want to talk about before I go to the Bible reading tonight. And I'm kind of glad that we're reading the Bible tonight. It seems like a good night to read God's word and figure out what other people did in, slightly scary or very difficult circumstances. And again, this may be nothing, this may be completely fine. Maybe Mom Donnie will handle it just fine and it'll all melt tomorrow. But I don't like the structure of control that he's building. The other thing he said in his press conference, which I really want you guys to follow up on, is that there will be increased surveillance at crosswalks. It went right by. I just heard it fleetingly, so I really need to look at the transcript. But that's like the beginning of China style, facial recognition, cameras everywhere. You being tracked by your phone, tracked by, they tried to track us by vaccine passports in this city during the pandemic. They did track people by vaccine passports in this city during the pandemic. But I don't like that. You don't need more surveillance in crosswalks of citizens because it's snowing. The last thing I want to mention, and Brian O'Shea is going to join us after our hour of Bible reading is over, and we'll talk more about this. Zoran Mamdani has also created probably partly in response to the intense criticism he received after the last blizzard, and I've been covering it on my social media, 7-foot high filthy piles of snow covered in dog poop, walls of trash, no trash collection. He got plenty of criticism for that, plus 19 New Yorkers who are homeless freezing to death the last time around because he did away with sweeps of homeless encampments to protect people who would otherwise freeze to death. In the warm embrace of collectivism, his words, we lost 19 homeless New Yorkers last time around to exposure, death from freezing to death, a really 19th century Dickensian way to die. So this time, and people realized that the sidewalks were impassable and that the Department of Sanitation had difficulty getting the garbage because the sidewalks weren't cleared of snow, which is usually the city's job. There's millions of dollars that typically go to hiring people by the city. They're union jobs, they're good jobs, they have benefits, they have retirement, and they're the ones who typically, keep the snow clear so the Department of Sanitation can do their jobs. That didn't happen. No one really knows why not. And so this time around, to avoid that, instead of working efficiently with the people our millions of tax dollars already have in place to do those jobs, Zoran Mamdani has kind of weirdly and kind of chaotically offered people quite a lot of money for, totally unskilled labor. It's between, I think, $19 and $25 or $30 an hour. What is it, honey?
So the people could go to nyc.gov.
You could go to nyc.gov
/snow. And then it's emergency snow shovelers.
Emergency snow shovelers.
$19.14 an hour.
$19.14 an hour.
To $28.71.
Oh, goes up to $28.71 an hour.
First 40 hours.
After the first 40 hours. So
it says here only for illegal aliens.
Okay, that's a joke.
Okay.
Brian said it says only for illegal aliens, but that's a joke. However, interestingly, since there's a fight right now from Democrats who don't want any form of ID in order to vote, Zoran Mamdani is requiring multiple forms of ID to get a shovel and to get paid. for shoveling. But the reason I bring all of this up, maybe it'll work out fine, maybe it won't, maybe people will keep the shovels, maybe fights will break out. It's honestly, it sounds pretty chaotic. The other thing it's doing is definitely undercutting the unions, who are, very much, whether you like them or not, very much a part of this city and have been for decades. But Mamdani said in his press conference that it's the shopkeeper's responsibility to shovel out the snow in and around the bus stop. Now, bus stops are really big, long, 30, 40 feet at least. And the snow was frozen solid last time around. And Mamdani said they're going to be issuing summonses to store owners who don't do the job of digging out the bus stops from the snow. Well, and he's also saying it's store owners' responsibility to clear the sidewalk in front of their shop. That I can understand. But to assign to store owners the city job of digging the bus stops out of multiple feet of snow, and they're property owners, right?
Building.
And fining them if they don't, or they don't do it successfully. And what if you're, disabled as a store owner? What if you're elderly? Or what if you're a woman who's not that big and you just can't physically do it, right? You're still going to get summonsed. So I think this is really interesting because no one's ever said that before. The city cleared the snow. That's what our tax dollars are for. No one ever said you have to do it or we're going to come take more of your money. And Brian points out, and I think he's right, that this is yet another attack on property owners and on small business, right? I mean, it's these small businesses that make New York special, make it work, make it different from faceless strip mall cities across America, the little bodega, the little boutique, the little mom and pop, shoe repair store. Well, those are the ones who are being targeted if they don't get out there. And what does it mean to keep the bus stop clear? If the snow is going to continue to fall several feet tonight and tomorrow, are they supposed to be out there all night, so they don't get summoned? Are they supposed to, what if they can't clear it physically? I mean, there's gigantic equipment that we pay money for that's housed in giant garages, that's deployed in situations like this in New York. And that's not what Mamdani is rolling out. He is rolling out a whole new, weirdly Victorian army of like chimney sweeps, right? It's like it's like Mary Poppins. It's like, oh, I'm a chimney sweep with the little hat and I'm going to sweep in front of your, sidewalk. And, I'm going to doff my hat and you're going to give me some money, Mr. State. And it's also like this weird kind of, little mom and pop bodega owner, it's on you. And so the last thing that Brian points out is that the Bolsheviks in Russia, after they seized power and executed the royal family, the Russian royal family, forced aristocrats to shovel the snow. And Brian wants to say something, but yes, sweetheart, it's disconcerting when you're just this voice.
I'm not going to step in front.
You're not going to step in front of the camera. Okay.
But I'm just saying, I went to register for this snow shoveling thing, and the next available appointment, you have to show up. It says, I will bring 2 small photos. I will bring the original and copy of 2 forms of identification. I have a social security card and will bring it. I'm at least 18 years old, can do heavy labor. I will not report to a DSNY garage or DOT location if I have COVID-19. But then it says, select your borough, did that. Select DSNY garage, did that. And then select date for your appointment.
Okay, can you hear Brian's voice? I'm just afraid.
Yeah, they can probably hear it if you're on a Mac. Okay. The next available appointment is March 14th.
Wow. All right. Well,
and they won't let me select anything earlier.
So March 14th, it'll be springtime. The snow will have melted.
Well, that tells me they already gave out these jobs.
They already gave out the jobs. All right. Well, maybe that's efficient. We'll see. All right. That's really helpful, sweetheart. I'm going to dive right in now to the 1560 Geneva Bible. There's not an easy transition there, except that, the enemy is at our gates, I think, and inside our gates. And so it's good to read about a small group of people who were facing gigantic odds, who were trying to maintain coherence, clarity of mission, stay, pointing in the direction that God had oriented them 3,500 years ago. So let's go ahead. I'm going to share my screen. You know that we finished Geneva Bible Numbers 20 in our last episode. And you recall that, once again, Miriam had died, and then the people lacked water, I believe it was, in Numbers 20, and complained about it. And God was, again, kind of frustrated and disappointed with them. So that is a recurring theme. So now we're in Geneva Bible 21, and we still are not in the promised land, you guys. We're still hovering around at the, outside the promised land. God has made it clear that this generation, including Aaron and Moshe, are going to have to die off because they've been so disappointing, disobedient, unhelpful, even Moshe. And they're not going to make it to the land of Israel, which is quite heartbreaking. So we're still outside the land of Israel. So chapter 21, here's the subheadline. Remember, that's not part of the text in the 1560 Geneva Bible. Israel vanquishes King Arad. The first serpents are sent for the rebellion of the people. Sihon and Og are overcome in battle. All right, and now the text begins. When King Arad the Canaanite, which dwelt toward the south, heard tell that Israel came by the way of the spies, then fought he against Israel and took of them prisoners. So Israel vowed a vow unto the Lord and said, if you will deliver and give this people into mine hand, then I will utterly destroy their cities. It's interesting. Israel is being treated as if it's a singular being. And the Lord heard the voice of Israel and delivered them, the Canaanites, and they utterly destroyed them and their cities and called the name of the place Hormah. After they departed from the Mount Hor by the way of the Red Sea to compass, meaning to go around, to circle the land of Edom. And the people were sore grieved because of the way. They were very stressed and sad because it was such a long journey. And the people spoke against God yet again and against Moshe, saying, wherefore have you brought us out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For here is neither bread nor water, and our soul loathes this light bread. Wherefore the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, which stung the people, so that many of the people of Israel died. And I know you're hearing the echo of this. This is a thematic complaint. Why have you taken us out of slavery where at least we had enough to eat? Therefore, the people came to Moshe and said, we have sinned, for we have spoken against the Lord and against you. Pray to the Lord that he take away the serpents from us. And Moshe prayed for the people, meaning on behalf of them. And the note says, for they were stung therewith, were so inflamed with the heat thereof that they died. It's talking about the serpents, the snakes sting. And the Lord said unto Moshe, make you a fiery serpent and set it up for a sign, that as many as are bitten may look upon it and live. So Moshe made a serpent of brass and set it up for a sign. And when a serpent had bitten a man, then he looked to the serpent of brass and lived. And the children of Israel departed thence and pitched in Obot. And they departed from Obot and pitched, meaning pitched their tents, in Li Abarim in the wilderness, which is before Moab on the east side. They removed thence and pitched upon the river of Zared. Thence they departed and pitched on the other side of Arnon, which is in the wilderness, and comes out of the coasts of the Amorites. For Arnon is the border of Moab, between the Moabites and the Amorites. Wherefore it shall be spoken in the book of the battles of the Lord, what thing he did in the Red Sea and in the rivers of Arnon, and at the stream of the rivers that goes down to the dwelling of Ar and lies upon the border of Moab. And from there, they turned to Be'er, which means well. The same is the well where the Lord said unto Moshe, assemble the people, and I will give them water. Then Israel sang this song, rise up well, sing you unto it. The princes digged this well. The captains of the people digged it. Even the La Wegner, I don't know. Oh, the foreigner, I think. It's hard to read that word. With their staves. And from the wilderness, they came to Matana. And from Matana to Nechaliel, and from Nechaliel to Bamot, and from Bamot in the valley, that is in the plain of Moab, to the top of Pisgah, that looks toward Ishimon. Then Israel sent messengers unto Sihon, king of the Amorites, saying, let me go through your land. We will not turn aside into the fields, nor into the vineyards, neither drink of the waters of the wells. We will go by the king's way until we be past your country. But Sihon gave Israel no license to pass through his country. But Sihon assembled all his people and went out against Israel into the wilderness. And he came to Yahoz and fought against Israel. But Israel smote him with the edge of the sword and conquered his land from Arnon unto Yavok, even unto the children of Ammon, for the border of the children of Ammon was strong. And Israel took all these cities and dwelt in all the cities of the Amorites, in Heshbon and in all the villages thereof. For Heshbon was the city of Sihon, the king of the Amorites, which had fought before time against the king of the Moabites, and had taken all his land out of his hand, even unto Arnon. Wherefore, for that reason, they that spoke in Proverbs say, come to Heshbon, let the city of Sihon be built and repaired. For a fire is gone out of Heshbon, and a flame from the city of Sihon, and has consumed Ar of the Moabites and the lords of Bamot in Arnon. Woe be to thee, woe be to you, Moab. O people of Chemosh, you are undone. He has suffered, meaning allowed, his sons to be pursued and his daughters to be in captivity to Sihon, the king of the Amorites. Their empire is lost from Heshbon unto Dibon, and we have destroyed them unto Nophah, which reaches unto Medeba. Thus Israel dwelt in the land of the Amorites. And Moshe sent to search out Yazer, and they took the towns belonging thereto and rooted out the Amorites that were there. And the note says Chemosh was the idol of the Moabites, and there's a reference, who was not able to defend his worshipers and took the idol for their father. So this is like a battle of gods, all right? And they turned and went up toward Bashan. And Og, the king of Bashan, came out against them, he and all his people, to fight at Edrei. Then the Lord said unto Moshe, fear him not, for I have delivered him unto your hand, and all his people and his land. And you shall do to him as you did unto Sihon, the king of the Amorites, which dwelt at Heshbon. They smote him, therefore, they struck him and his sons and all his people, until there was none left. So they conquered his land. So that is the Geneva Bible, 1560. The Pilgrim's Bible, the Puritans' Bible, Jefferson's Bible, Shakespeare's Bible. And you see that, you know, I don't have to keep repeating this because you've been on this journey with us probably. The there are several passages that are very, very, very familiar. They've come up like 6 or 7 or 8 times in these books to date. And, one of them, as I mentioned, is the children of Israel saying, it's not good enough, God. We don't like this food you're giving us. We don't like this light bread. We'll see how that's translated. We're sick of the food. We're sick, we don't have enough water. We miss the leeks. We miss the delicious onions. We miss the fantastic food of slavery in Egypt. And God really hates that. He hates it when they do that. He wants his people, but it sounds like he wants people to value and cherish freedom, even if it's uncomfortable. And I think he also wants them to recognize when he's sustaining them miraculously. The food they don't like is miraculous food in the middle of the desert. The manna from the dew is miraculous food that God manifests out of nothing because the people are hungry. The water that he provided was from a rock that had no water in it. You recall Moshe struck the rock with his staff. He wasn't supposed to do that. He was supposed to just speak to the rock, but he did. And the water came gushing out over and over and over. God is like, okay, fine. Here, I'm looking after you. Obviously, I'm going to look after you. I'm clearly the Lord of hosts. I'm going to bring you to the promised land. Trust me, please. Here's another miracle. And honestly, I can see, like I've said this many times before, I never knew till I read the Geneva Bible and the Hebrew Bible, up until this point, because I haven't read the whole thing. I'm going through it with you fresh. This is really told from God's perspective, a lot of it. And you really sympathize with God because he's pretty reasonable. Here's another thing I'll do to meet your needs. Please just align with me. Trust me, we're going somewhere. It's going to work out. And they just can't do it. They can't do it in a sustained way. Very human, right? But you can really feel God's frustration. And yeah, like so many miracles. I've gone before you in a pillar of smoke. I've gone before you in in fire. I've manifested. I gave you the 10 commandments. I opened up the earth and swallowed up the people who were rebelling and complaining a few chapters back. I mean, over and over and over, the miraculous takes place at the hand of Yahweh. And people just keep whining and also being not confident, like wussies, like not brave, not confident. What is the word? Like hesitant, not courageous, not showing leadership. It's not what God wants. Probably not what God wants from us to this day. You really get a sense, as I've been saying over and over in this journey, you get a sense of the personality of God very clearly, and the very human way he, has preferences, and his preferences in this case are for brave people who can have faith in him. All right, let's go now to the Hebrew and see if there's anything important that we need to pick up. Vishma Haknani, and heard the Canaanite, Melech Adar, the king Adar, Yeshev Hanegev, seated or settled in the Negev desert, Kiba Yisrael derech ha'atrim, that the people of Israel were coming in the way of the same route that the spies came. Ve'yilachem b'Yisrael ve'yeshb mimeno shevi. And he waged war against Israel and took from them a captive. And I want you to hear a lot of echoes that are not in the English in this sentence. There's yeshev, settled, vayeshb, he took from them the same root, shev, yeshb, mimeno, from among them, shevi, a captive, same root, different meaning, right? Shev, shevi. All right. So that's, just an example of this miraculous language. Why the repetition? why? I don't know. I don't know how it's possible to have repetition unless the story is being crafted to make those echoes. But why make those echoes? I don't know. I'd love to know. I'll look into it some more. Vayidar Israel neder, and Israel made a vow, l'Adonai, to God, vayomer im naton titen, and said, if, and again a repetition, naton titen, he'll give the gift. Et ha'am hazeh beyadi, this people in my hand, veha charamti et arehem, I'll consecrate their cities. Vayishma, and he heard Adonai, God, B'kol Israel, in the voice of Israel, Vayiten et Haknani Vayicharem, and he delivered, he handed over the Canaanite Vayicharem, and he consecrated et hem ve'et arihem, them and their cities, Vayikra Shem Hamakom Charma, and he called the name of the place Choma. Vayis'u maher, mahor hahar, another repetition. And they journeyed, and this also has the implication of they carried, like they're carrying all their stuff. Vayis'u, nosea is to journey. And they journeyed mehor hahar, from the mountain of Hor. And again, there's that repetition. Har means mountain. Hor is the name of the mountain. So mihor hahar, you hear the repetition. It looks almost like the same word. Derech Yamsuf, the way of the Red Sea. Lisvov et Eretz Edom, to circle, Saviv is around, the land of Edom. Tiktsar nefesh ha'am baderech, and the people became literally, their spirit was shortened. Katsar is short, so they ran low on morale. Nefesh is spirit, the people baderech, in the way. Vaydaber ha'am be'elohim, and they spoke, literally the people, in God. It doesn't say against, u ve'Moshe, and in Moses. In context, it's against. Lama he'elitenu, why did you bring us up? La'alot is to lift up. Mimitzrayim, from Egypt. Lamut bamidbar, to die in the desert. Ki ein lechem, because there's no food. Ve'ein mayim, and there's no water. Ve'nafshenu katsa, and our spirit is disgusted. Belechem ha kalokel, with this rotten bread. Kalokel is, mikulkal is ruined, rotten, destroyed. So that's really interesting. It's much stronger in Hebrew than it is in the translation in the Geneva Bible, where it's this light bread. I understand why they mistranslated it. Kal is easy. It can also mean light, but the word mikalkel has kal in it, but it's a different word, and it means ruined, rotten. So they're grossed out. Vayishlach Adonai ba'am et hanechashim, and sent God into the people the snakes, ha srafim venashchu et ha'am, the venomous snakes. Lisrof is to burn. Venachshu, and they snaked as a verb, right? They bit. Et ha'am, the people. Veyamat amrav, and many of the people died. Misrael, from Israel. V'yavo ha'am el Moshe, and the people came to Moses. V'yomru chatanu, and they said, we have sinned. Ki dibarnu b'Adonai, because we spoke against the Lord. Again, it's literally because we spoke in the Lord. Uvecha, and in you. Hit palel el Adonai, pray toward God. Ve'yaser me'aleinu et hanachash, v'yitpalel Moshe be'ad ha'am. Pray to the Lord that he remove the snakes from us. So Moses prayed on behalf of the people. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe, and God said to Moses, Aselecha saraf, make yourself a serpent, v'sim oto al nes, and put it on a pole, V'haya kol hanashuch v'ra'a oto v'chai. And let anyone who's bitten look at this and live. Moshe v'ya'as, and made Moshe, Moses, nechash nechoshet. Listen to that language. This is so beautiful. I can't even believe it. Ve'ya'as, and made Moshe, Moses, nechash nechoshet. Same echo, different meanings. How is this even possible? Nechash is a snake. Nechoshet is copper. How do they do that? Right? Nechash nechoshet. Same echo, same letters, except for the taf added to the second word, different meanings. A snake that is copper, the yesimehu, and he placed him al ha nes, ve Adonai im nashach hanachash, and whenever a snake bit a man, et ish, a man, vehabit el nechash, and he looks toward the snake, hanachoshet, the copper, v'chai, and he lives. And listen to yet another amazing echo, neshach hanachash. It's almost a palindrome. Neshach, bitten, hanachash, by the snake. Neshach hanachash. The words are literally, the letters are mirroring each other. Vayis'u b'nei Yisrael, and the children of Israel journeyed, v'yachanu be'ovot, and they camped in Ovot. V'yis'u, and they journeyed me'ovot, from Ovot, v'yachanu, and they camped be'iyeh ha'av, Varim, in the wasteland passes, Bamidbar, in the wilderness, Asher al pnei Moab, which is on the face of Moab, Mimizrach Hashemesh, to the east of the sun. And they translate that toward the rising sun. It's such a beautiful sentence. Misham, from there, Nas'u v'yachanu, they traveled and they camped Benachal Zerek, literally in the stream of Zered, Benachal Zered, in the stream of Zered. Misham Nas'u v'yachanu, from there they traveled and they camped. Me'ever Arnon, on the other side, across the Arnon. Asher b'midbar, which was in the desert. Ha-yotze migvul ha-emori, which extends from the Amorite border. Migvul ha-amori, ki Arnon gvul, for the Arnon was the Moabite border, Moab, Bein Moab uvein ha-Emori, between Moab and the Amorites. Now these are different tribes, the Moabites, the Amorites. Again, for this reason, or concerning this, Ye'amar, it said, Besefer Milchamot Adonai, in the book of the battles of God, the wars of God, Et Vahev Besufa, what he gave at the Sea of Reeds, Ve'et Hanechalim Arnon, and the streams of Arnon. That's a quote. Ve'eshed Hanechalim, and the spilling of the streams, Asher Nata Leshevet, that turned to settle Ar, at Ar, Ve'nishan Ligvul Moab, and leaned toward the border of Moab. Umisham Be'era, and from there toward the well, Hu HaBe'er, it is the well, Asher Amar Adonai LeMoshe, which God said to Moses, Esof et ha'am, gather together the people, Ve'et na lahem mayim, and I will give them water. So it's a well they've already encountered when they were complaining about not having water. Az Yashir Israel, then sang Israel, Et Hashira, the song, Hazot, this, Ali Be'er Enu La, ascend, O well, sing to it. Be'er Chafruha, a well dug, Sarim, by princes, Keruha Nedivei, carved out by nobles of the people, Ha'am, B'mechokek, B'mish Anotam, Mi midbar matana, through the lawgiver with their staffs, and from the desert a gift. Mi midbar matana, and from the desert a gift. Beautiful. Mi matana Nachaliel, and from the gift to the streams, ume Nachaliel bamot, and from the streams to the heights, u mibamot Hagai, and from the heights to the valley, Asher Beste Moab, which is in the valley of Moab, Rosh HaPisgah, at the top of the peak, Ha Nishkafa al Pnei Ha Yeshimon, that overlooks the wastelands. And that's all a quote. It's part of this beautiful song. V'yishlach Yisrael, and Israel sent, meaning the people of Israel sent, malachim, messengers. Now remember, malach is the same word as angels, but the people in this context definitely sent messengers. El Sichon, to Sichon, Melech HaEmori, the Amorite king, Lemor, saying, and this is a quote, E'ebra Aretz, let me pass, let me cross over. La'avor is to cross over. Be'artzecha, in your land. Lo nite b'stei, we will not turn into the fields. Ubekerem lo nishte, or the vineyards, we will not drink. Me be'er, well water. B'derech hamelech nilech, in the way of the king, the highway of the king we will go. Ad asher na'avor Gvulecha, until we have passed through your territory. And I believe we had exactly this exchange a couple of chapters ago. I'm not positive, but this sounds like a quote that we have run through before. Velonatan Sichon, and he didn't give Sichon. And by the way, the word natan is the same root as matana, gift. So he didn't allow Sichon et Yisrael, Israel, avor bigvulo, to cross over his borders, ve'esof Sichon, and Sichon gathered et kol amo, all his people, ve'yetze likrat Israel, and he went out to the desert for the sake of Israel, hamidbara, toward the desert, ve'yavo yetza vayel Chem B'Israel, and he arrived at Yachaz, Yachaz, and fought against, warred with Israel. V'yikehu, and he smote Israel, lefi cherev, with a sword. V'yirash et arzo, and they took possession of his land. Me'arnon, from the Arnon, which is a river, ad Yabok, to Yabok, ad bnei Ammon, as far as the children of Ammon, ki az gvul bnei Ammon, because the border of the children of Ammon was strong. V'ikach Israel et kol ha'arim, and Israel took, meaning conquered, all these cities, ha'ele, these cities, vayeshev Israel, and Israel settled, bechol arei ha'amori, in all the cities of the Amorites, becheshbon ubechol bnoteha, in Cheshbon and all her villages, literally all her daughters. But it also could mean all the livnot is to build, so they translated all its villages, all her villages. Ki Cheshbon, because Cheshbon, which is the name of a city, Ir Sichon, was the city of Sichon, Melech HaEmori, the king of the Amorites, who it was, Vehu Nilcham b'Melech Moav, and the king of the Amorites, he had fought against the first king of Moab, Harishon, the first, V'ikach et kol arzo, and he took all his land, miyado, from his hand, ad Arnon, until Arnon. So this is going back a little to Amorite history and how they had taken their land from the king of Moab earlier. Al-Ken, for all of this, concerning this, Yomru Hameshlim Bou Cheshbon, those who speak in parables say, come to Cheshbon, Tibane Vetikonen Ir Sichon. Come to Cheshbon, may it be built and established as the city of Sichon. It's still a quote. Ki esh yatzah, because fire went out, mecheshbon, from Cheshbon, lehava mikriyat Sichon, a flame from the city of Sichon, achla Ar Moab be'alei bamot Arnon. It consumed Ar of Moab, the masters of the high places of Arnon. And by the way, Very important. High places are places of sacrifice in a pagan culture. So the high places are also the pagan, impure to the children of Israel, sacred sites, sacred temples, altars, right? Oy lecha. I love this word. You've got to know this word. Oy, they still say it. Oy va'avoy. And even in Yiddish, right? Oy vey, you've heard that, no doubt, in Woody Allen films. Oy, it means, it comes from this long ago. It means woe to you. Oy lecha, woe to you. Moav, avadata kimosh, you are lost. Your avod is to work, but it's also to be abandoned, right? Oy lecha Moav, woe to you, Moab. Avadata, you're lost, you're abandoned. Chemosh, people of Chemosh. Natan banav, he has given his sons plitim, as refugees, ubnotav, and his daughters, bishvit lemelech Emori Sichon, as captives into captivity to Sichon, king of the Amorites. The Niram Avad Cheshbon, the kingdom is destroyed from Cheshbon, ad Dibon, until Dibon. The Nashim ad Nofach, Asher ad Midva. It has been removed from Dibon. We laid them waste as far as Nofah, which is near Medeba. And that's the end of that quote. Vayeshev Israel, and that word lashevet, to sit, but also to settle. Israel settled be'eretz ha'emori, in the land of the Amorites. V'yishlach Moshe leragel et Ya'azer, and Moses sent men to spy out Ya'azer. Ve'yil Kidu, and they captured Bnoteha, its villages. Again, that word, its buildings, its livnot, its villages. Ve'yoresh et ha'emori asher sham, driving out the Amorites that were there. Upnu, and they turned. Again, panim is faces. They faced. They turned. V'ya'alu, and went up. Derech Habashan, toward the Bashan. V'yitze Og, and then Og, the king of Bashan, Melech Bashan, went out, likratam, for their sake, hu ve'chol amo, he and all his people, lemilchama edrei, to wage war at Edrei, to war. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe, and God said to Moses, al tireh, don't fear him. Again, that very important word, lirot. It means, it sounds like lirot, to see, but it's different. It means to have awe, to have fear, to be intimidated. It's often translated as fear God, like God is scary, but it actually means be in awe of God, recognize his hugeness, right? Take note in a big way. Well, it can also mean don't be afraid. And so in this context, God is saying to Moses, don't be afraid. Do not fear him. Al tira oto, don't fear him. Ki biyadecha, because in your hand, natati oto, I have given him. Again, natati has that same root as matana, gift, I've given him. Ve'et kol amo, and all his people. Ve'et arzo, and his land. Ve'asita lo ke'asher asita leSichon, and you will do to him as you did to Sichon, Melech ha'emori, king of the Amorites, asher yoshev b'Cheshbon, who dwells in Cheshbon. Ve'yaku oto, and they smote him. Ve'et banav, and his sons, ve'et kolamo, and all his people, ad bilti hishir, till there was none left, no survivor left behind. Lo sharid ve'yirshu et arzo, and they took possession of his land. So that is the Hebrew. And, what can we reflect about that? Well, let's just take a minute. I guess one thing that occurred to me when I was reading the route they took is it's pretty boring to read the route they took, right? And it's boring, again, that word verisimilitude. it's boring because it sounds like a real route that was really taken. Again, I keep saying over and over, but this is such a good example of it. This book, this Torah, doesn't sound like other origin stories that are mythological, right? Even the Odyssey, which is a very detailed, wonderful fable, right? Myth. It tells kind of where Odysseus went for sure. Then they went there, they went north. Then he stopped at an island. Here's Scylla and Charybdis, right? But it doesn't have long, unpoetic passages like, and then he went to Sparta, and he turned left at Sparta, and he went 150 miles, and then there was a well, and then they turned right at the well, and they went around the territory of the people they were trying to avoid, and they were annoyed about the detour, right? Like it doesn't have those passages because it's poetry, and it's also supposed to be inspiring, and it's mythological. Maybe there was a real Odysseus. Maybe there was, maybe there was a real Patroclus, right? Maybe there was, but some of those cities, some of those events are definitely real. They're historical, but the Odyssey and the Iliad, right, have been highly mythologized by the time you're reading the poetry. And so long, boring passages about, the route they took aren't part of it, because that's not good poetry. It's not good myth. This is different. Sometimes it's soaring poetry. Sometimes it's just a travelogue. And it's literally a travelogue that's so detailed that many, many Bibles will show literally the route that was just described in Numbers 21. Here you turn right, here you go north. And again, to me, I don't know that every single thing in this book happened exactly the way the author or authors say or said that it did, but something real happened, is my judgment from these boring passages about exactly where this group of people went. The other thing I really want you to feel, and it's a little hard to do it because the language, the chapters in which nothing much happens except that the children of Israel wander around in the desert, arguing with God, are told in much the same voice, and the chapters are about the same length as a chapter like this in which a ton of stuff has happened, right? So it's easy to kind of zone out and not really process what a big deal this chapter 21 of Numbers is, because we've been wandering in the desert for a long time, and the children of Israel have been not ready, no conflict, right? There's nothing has happened that's normal conflict in a normal story of heroism and survival and overcoming. Here we have conflict. Not only do we have conflict at last, right? The last real conflict was in Egypt with Pharaoh, and then running away from, not really a conflict, an escape, fleeing, not that heroic really, the army of the Egyptians, which miraculously, as you recall, were swallowed up in the Red Sea. But here we have a real war. We have war. The war is here. The war has come. So however the children of Israel have, disappointed God, over and over again in this journey, as God is like trying to do a boot camp with them, almost like turning them into people who will do his bidding in this very important task of getting into the promised land and taking possession of it, and then setting up like a people that revere God that will populate the rest of the world with the DNA of people who revere God through, if you're Christian, through Jesus. And if you're not Christian, that really did happen just from the exile, right? Judeo-Christian values, Jewish values went all over the world. Whether people liked Jews or not, their values went all over the world, right? That prediction came true. But finally, we have war. And so on some level, God clearly has decided that, as annoying as these people can be, they're now ready. They're ready for combat. And not only is there war, there's a series of kind of miraculous victories. And they're just narrated in a very flat way, the way sometimes the narrator will narrate something really big, like Miriam died and was buried. That's a big deal. She's a big part of these people. She was a leader. She's the sister of the priest Aaron and the leader Moshe. But she died and was buried. Boom. Well, the narration is quite flat here too, but they've had, I think, 2 wars, and they've defeated 2 kings, if I understand this correctly. And they took over their land, and they did what conquering armies did at this time, which is they vanquished the sons. They took the sons as refugees, and they took the daughters into captivity for slaves. That's what armies did. But they've taken over the Amorites' land. They defeated the Amorites, and these are powerful. These are not wandering nomads, living in tents like the children of Israel have been, and presumably like other tribes this time in this area also are like nomads, like Bedouins living in tents, right? These are built cities. These are kings of settled cities. They say the word arim over and over. These are cities, and also bnotam, the villages. So it's a whole network of established a kingship. Right? These are pagans. They worship another god. It's not Yahweh, but Yahweh's like, don't worry about them. Don't be scared of them. I'm going to deliver them into your hand. Just do as I say, Moshe. And the children of Israel did. In this chapter, they did seem to obey God, and they went into battle, which they had no reason to believe they wouldn't be sold into slavery or massacred. But God did deliver the Amorites into the hand of the children of Israel. And then they settled in their cities. These people have been on the move for book after book after book, at least 2 books since they left Egypt. Well, now they're settling. They're not settling yet in the land of Israel. It's at the border, probably in what's now Jordan, I would say, what used to be called Transjordan. That's my reading. I'll take another look and let you know if that's not correct. But it's still in the desert. It's not a nice place, but they won. They took over built cities and settled in them. So that's huge. I mean, these people are so random, and they've barely been organized into tribes, and they've barely had princes, 12 princes, set at the head of their tribes, and they barely had a leader set over all the princes. They've barely created a council for strategy. Remember those chapters when Moses was like, this is too difficult. I can't do it. And God said, okay, calm down. I'll get you a council. You don't have to do everything yourself. They barely established a religion, like, how do we worship? Well, here's the tent. Okay, we carry it with us. All of this, they barely managed to do, and yet they've taken over a whole corner of the Middle East, right? In chapter 21, I'm sorry, of Numbers. So that's a really big deal. Like, there's action at last. You could say that it's not very nice that they made war rather than doing some sort of diplomacy with the Amorites, but that's not the world that they were in. And that's not what God wanted. God didn't want them to collaborate with the Amorites. He wanted them to wipe them out, take their stuff. He doesn't want them to cohabit and collaborate with idol worshipers. He doesn't. So let's see who has comments. We've got our friend Netta Slabi calling in from Japan. Hey, Netta, I hope you're well. And then lots of people have lots of comments. Roscoe Ross. Hi, Dr. Wolf. And he has an unrelated comment, which we'll get to if we have time. And he's an old friend of ours. And Netta says sometimes no sound. Let me know if you guys had trouble with the sound. This is funny. So someone said, I'm going to do a Svedka shot since D. Wolf is having wine. It's actually water in a wine glass, but I don't have a chaser beside water. That's funny. Another time when I'm not reading, a holy text, I'll definitely have a drink with you guys. And for those of you who don't drink, you can have soda. And then Roscoe Ross says, damn right, it's boring. That's why we need the Zohar. I don't want to be struck by lightning here, especially given the vulnerability of the intro that you may have missed, where we're on an island that's being cut off from the mainland and being put under emergency law, I think as a trial run for something bad later, maybe. But so I don't want to say the word of God is boring. I should qualify that. It may be boring to you. I really want to acknowledge on this journey, a lot of people find reading the Bible boring because the translations are so terrible. And that's one reason I do think it's important for me to read you the Hebrew, which I think is so exciting to hear the original. And well, here's a long one. Talia Amos says the two Hebrew infinitives are very similar in writing and sound, but they come from different roots and have completely different meanings. That's right. La'avod is to work. That's right. Very common in modern Hebrew. Ani oved, I'm working. Le'avod is to get lost, to perish, to stray. And the root, she's absolutely right, is with an aleph, not an ayin. Examples, who le'abed, but b'ya'ach, he got lost in the forest. And she's got more to say. It's very, very accurate. And if I said they were from the same root, forgive me, that was not correct. They're from different roots. You can hear there's one word in the root different, aleph instead of ayin, but they do sound exactly like they're homonyms, right? Or often, and then that was the end of that post. So we'll have to have another post to hear how that ends. It's a metaphor for how we go. Roscoe says something very profound. The wandering in the desert, I assume you mean Roscoe, is a metaphor for how we go in useless circles in our own lives. So true. So true. Looking back on your life, how many times did you or I, will certainly say I do it, waste time, waste energy, waste relationships ruminating about things we can't change, or not doing what we know in our heart we have to do to move ahead with our mission so often, or procrastinating, delaying, trying to do our stuff instead of what we know to be God's stuff, for us, which usually works out best for us. Here's what Roscoe's saying. 40 years in the desert is a metaphor for that. So true, Roscoe. I agree with you. That is very profound. And I want to thank Talia for that excellent correction in the Hebrew. And let's go back to someone who wants to talk about the Epstein files. Let's talk about the Epstein files in my show, Outspoken. This person is saying if they released 100% of the Epstein files fully unredacted, it could set in motion a chain of events that could ultimately lead to the extinction of the human species. I don't know that that's true. And as a journalist, if I really can't source or confirm something, I just leave it there. If you've got a source about why it'll lead to the extinction of the human species, let's hear it. But I'm a little overwhelmed with the horrors that are revealed in the Epstein files. And so one reason I'm glad to turn back to the Geneva Bible is things are so gross out there. I'd like to look at something less gross. And this is very pure and lovely. So let me just take a quick look at the Revised Standard Version, okay? And so often it's so poorly translated. And I am going to see if what I did was bad. Let's see. It looks like I didn't call up the Revised Standard Version, and we're out of time. Do you want me to do Revised Standard Version Numbers 21 and share it? Let's see what jumps out, just because we always do that. Here is Bible Gateway. I will share my screen. I'm going to stop that screen. I'm going to share the screen like this. And there it is, the bronze serpent. All right. When the Canaanites who dwelt in the Negev heard that Israel was coming by the way of Atarim, he fought against Israel and took some of them captive. Now that's interesting. In Hebrew, there's one captive taken. In the English RSV, it's multiple captives. And I don't think that's correct. And Israel vowed a vow to the Lord and said, if you will, I want to call your attention to this. This drives me crazy. The Revised Standard Version always has dialogue with God be this weird, archaic thee and thou wilt in a way that we just don't, we haven't spoken like that since the 16th century, early 17th century. And it's nonsensical for people to talk to God that way. In Hebrew, they are talking to God exactly the way they talk to each other. And I think that's important. So Israel vowed a vow and said, if thou wilt indeed give this people into my hand, then I will utterly destroy their cities. And the Lord hearkened to the voice of Israel and gave over the Canaanites, and they utterly destroyed them in their cities. So the name of the place was called Hormah, Mount Hor. And again, in Hebrew, it's more like the hill of Hor. They set out by the way to the Red Sea to go around the land of Edom, and the people became impatient on the way. Well, in Hebrew, it's much more poetic. Remember, their spirit was shortened on the way. And the people spoke against God and against Moshe. Why have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no food and no water, and we loathe this worthless food. Now, in Hebrew, it's much stronger. It's rotten or ruined, mekulkal, destroyed, right? And this is worthless. Then the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, so that many people of Israel died. And the people came to Moshe and said, we have sinned, for we have spoken against the Lord and against you. Pray to the Lord that he takes away the serpents from us. So Moshe prayed for the people, and the Lord said to Moses, make a fiery serpent and set it on a pole, and everyone who is bitten, when he sees it, shall live. So Moshe made a bronze serpent. Again, in Hebrew, it's copper. I think that's minor. Set it on a pole, and if a serpent bit any man, he would look at the bronze serpent and live. That's all pretty correct. The people of Israel set out and camped in a boat, and they set out from a boat and camped at Lieh Abarim in the wilderness, which is opposite Moab, toward the sunrise. I prefer the literal east of the sun. From there they set out and encamped in the valley of Zered. From there they set out and encamped on the other side of the Arnon. This is the passage that to me reads so tedious, like so real, which is in the wilderness that extends from the boundary of the Amorites, for the Arnon is the boundary of Moab, between Moab and the Amorites. Wherefore it is said in the book of the wars of the Lord, Waheb in Sufa and the valleys of the Arnon and the slope of the valleys that extend to the seat of Ar leads to the border of Moab. And there they continued to Be'er, that is the well of which the Lord said to Moses, gather the people together and I will give them water. Then Israel sang this song, spring up, O well, sing to it, the well which the princes dug, which the nobles of the people delved with a scepter and with their staves. And again, to delve is a very archaic word that just means to dig. There's no reason to make their language so archaic. From the wilderness, they went on to Matana, which means gift, and from Matana to Nechaliel, and from Nechaliel to Bamot, and from Bamot to the valley lying in the region of Moab by the top of Pisgah, which looks down toward the desert. And then I'm going to skip that because that's all pretty accurate. Woe to you, O Moab, you are undone, O people of Chemosh. And the commentator said it's much more like abandoned or lost. You're lost. He's made his sons fugitives and his daughters captives. Okay, King Og is defeated. So they slew him and his sons and all his people till there was not one survivor left to him, and they possessed his land. And the Lord said to Moses, do not fear him, for I've given him into your hand and all his people and all his land. So that's all pretty accurate. So I will close that out, with the caveats that I highlighted what is not accurate. It just never, Revised Standard Version never makes my heart sore. Guys, we're all done with the reading of the Geneva Bible. We've got a little troll, Jarmud de Brun, with a Palestinian flag. Well, you're welcome here, Jarmud. And he says doppelganger, which of course is a reference to a very fantasy-ridden book. I haven't read it, but this is my understanding. Written ostensibly to destroy my reputation by a woman named Naomi Klein. I'm still here, didn't destroy my reputation. I've kept my eyes on the prize, and that includes reading all the way up to Numbers 21 in the 1560 Geneva Bible. So that's the end of our hour with the Bible. Brian O'Shea, shall we go
right there? We're gonna start segueing.
Okay, now we're going to go into a completely different episode. We're done with the Geneva Bible podcast. Our editor will start a new podcast with what we're going into right now, but we're going to talk about a couple of news stories for my podcast, Outspoken, and my wonderful featured guest, Brian O'Shea, disclosure, my husband, also with me here in the blizzard of 2026, this ostensibly very, very serious blizzard, which is just basically some snow so far. We're going to talk about a couple of things that are going on in New York specifically. And I'm going to start with one of the first things, which is the fact, as I mentioned, that Zohran Mamdani is our very scary Islamist Marxist mayor is declaring a local state of emergency. And I'm sharing my screen. This is from nyc.gov/mayor's office. So this is right from the mayor's office. He's declaring a local state of emergency, a snow day for New York City public schools to keep New Yorkers safe. I just want to call your attention first to this graphic. You know that I was a political consultant and for the Clinton reelection campaign in 96 and for Gore 2000. And my then husband was a speechwriter for the Clintons. And, ever since then, I've really paid a lot of attention to imagery, to political imagery. It's important. These photo ops, people think about them. And if they don't think about them, they lose, and they should think about them. So it's there. I've commented before on the visuals of the Mamdani administration. I've commented, for instance, on how he wears a Mao jacket from time to time. He also cosplays as a Pakistani, imam in a shalwar kameez at times. Other times he eats with his hands. There's a lot of putting on of different personas. His mother, of course, is a famous filmmaker, Mira Nair. And he's basically in costume. I've talked about the costume he wore most of the campaign, which is his campaign, which was an outfit from 1963. Weird, right? And it was like a brown jacket, a button-down shirt, and a thin tie. And it was exactly the kind of outfit that the Freedom Riders used to wear, that RFK Jr. used to wear, that young man, idealistic, liberal aesthetic from 1963. And he dressed like that all the way throughout, even though no one who's a 31-year-old, however old he is, Brooklynite or Queens inhabitant dresses like that for real. No one. So here he's cosplaying, emergency press conference. You got to remember, as I said at the start of the last hour, he was badly criticized for mishandling the last blizzard. And so he's clearly trying to get ahead of that. And I've talked at the start of this, of the last hour, about crazy things he's planning to do, or weird things he's planning to do, including to create an army of random people, New Yorkers. Maybe they're New Yorkers, maybe they're not New Yorkers, right? Who are going to make between $19 and $28 an hour shoveling snow. I mentioned that, and this undercuts the unions. And where's our equipment that we spent millions on that usually clears our snow? I've talked about how he weirdly is telling shop owners that they need to dig out the bus stops, which is again the city's job, and if they don't do it, he'll fine them. Doesn't matter if they're disabled, doesn't matter if they're elderly or female and can't, he's gonna fine them. So Brian pointed out rightly, I'm recapping that that's another kind of blow against property owners. Another way to make it difficult to be a property owner, let alone a small business in New York. But now let's just take a minute and look at this graphic. So these are, it's not really clear who these people are. This guy on the far left in the back is related to the schools, school chancellor, thank you. But they're all wearing a special parka. I just, to me, it's weird that the women on the left look so grim. I think that they've been given instructions to look resolute, but the left doesn't do resolute very well. So they look extremely depressed.
Well, they're vegans.
They're vegans. That's right. This is Brian O'Shea. And to me, it seems odd that the women are holding their hands clasped. Everyone's clearly told to, everyone's doing it, clasp their hands in front of them. Democrats have been doing that a lot. I don't know why. It looks very unnatural and awkward. It looks non-gendered. Women don't organically stand that way. I don't think men organically stand that way either. Tiny children who are being scolded stand that way. But they're ranged around this baby Islamist Marxist mayor, and they're supposed to be giving him a background that says gravitas, here's the team, they're on it, but they look so unwell. I mean, his team really always, just doesn't, they look ill. They look like they just rolled out of bed. I'm not talking about these people, other people on his staff. And I'm not being like lookist at all. It's just such a stark contrast between like the administration, where everyone always looks, very well dressed, well groomed, polished, ready for prime time visually. So, that's what I see here. And these people look depressed. They look like they are not confident that they're going to be able to manage this. The other thing I want to mention, and then honey, I'd love it if you.
Yeah, but I have to set up the producer side of this. So I'm
really?
with you in spirit. Just
Okay.
keep rolling.
All right. Well, sweetheart, people can't see you. You're cut off there.
Oh, well, here.
Yeah.
There we go.
There we go. All right.
Hey, people.
Brian O'Shea.
I mean that in a non-communist sense.
So the other thing that I want to start out with is that I'd like to talk to you about what it means to have, I want to talk to you about the national security issue involved in being cut off from the rest of the country. Sweetheart, you don't have to produce. I have it all called up here. I'd rather you just chatted with us. That's how we do Outspoken.
Men, you know what I'm going through right now. That's fine. What do you, the national security danger? Sure.
I mean, have you ever heard a directive? And to just remind everyone, Mamdani said you can't drive. You're not allowed to go on the street in a vehicle, but his vehicles are on the street.
Well, I have heard such a directive in The Dark Knight Rises.
Tell me
when
about
the
that.
supervillain Bane takes over Gotham, which is New York.
Excuse me. Let me turn that off. I'm sorry. Keep telling people about Bane.
Well, basically what he does is, I'm sure most of you have seen the movie, but it's, Bane, the character, he's kind of like the strong man, kind of represents the communist dictator, super bad guy working for other super bad guys. But the first thing they do is they take out the mayor, the existing mayor.
How do they take him out?
They blow up his skybox at the NFL game. And then they have the entire city laced with explosives underground. So they blow up all the main roads, and then they blow up all the bridges. And I think, what do we have, 5 bridges here?
I think so.
Yeah, there's 5 bridges in Gotham too. So they blow them all up. And then they let all the people out of jail. and say you could join the army, you know, but start by tearing down this prison, you know, and freeing the oppressed. And so yeah, we have seen that, and he lets the people know, hey, I've got a nuke. And if you try to leave, we're going to detonate it. And then he tells the National Guard who shows up on the other side of the bridge, they're like, you think you could stop the National Guard? And they're like, we don't have to. You're going to keep the people from leaving, or we're going to detonate the nuke. So basically, it does go to show how easy it is to cut off this city. You just shut down the bridges. There's no walking out of Manhattan. I think people forget it's an island.
Yeah, people do forget that it's an island.
And, you know, that rolls into something else with, this isn't so much, well, yeah, it kind of is. Like in Bane, that whole scene is kind of like the 1917 revolution mixed with a couple of other historical events. But they rip the liars and the rich from their decadent beds. And you see the doormen, they don't get attacked by the mob. They join the mob because they're the working class.
Right.
And they take everything over. And
That's
he says,
quite a Marxist storyline for Hollywood.
You've never actually watched the whole thing. You should see it. And then they have the police trapped in the sewers, and they say, you know, an army will be raised, riches will be, spoils will be enjoyed.
Oh my God.
He said courts will be convened. He said the police will survive as they learn to serve true justice. And it goes on and on. So what you see happening here is that's not happening, I hope. But you do see a lot of things like New York City, even before Mamdani, has kind of acted like its own country. And so, for instance, my friend Dexter Taylor, who is sitting in an upstate prison right now for legally assembling firearms, he got raided by the SWAT team years after he applied for his license from ATF. Everything was good. And I asked him, I said, why would they raid you now? He said, well, the midterms are coming up.
Oh my God.
And I'm a Black Republican in the heart of Brooklyn. That's all he could figure. He had no criminal record, no nothing. Great guy, really smart. And then at his court case, the New York judge, when his defense lawyer, started making his argument on Second Amendment grounds, the judge stops the lawyer and says, there is no Second Amendment in my courtroom.
Oh my God.
So I think what people need to understand, the danger that we're facing here is the danger everyone is facing, no matter where you are in the country, possibly the world. And I put a graphic.
What do you mean by that? Like, what is
to
it?
Explain.
Okay, please.
And there's a graphic I put up on my X profile. You can find that at Brian O'Shea, SBI. Kind of lays it out. We're the 13th largest GDP in the world. If we were our own country, and I wouldn't want that to happen because that would mean some communists took over, some worse thing, we could have an army of 100,000 people based on the density of the population. I think New York has probably and just the city alone has one of the largest populations in the country. It also controls all of the trading and the indexes, and some of the major banks of the country and the world are here in New York. And it's also one of the major ports, not only for the East Coast, Port Elizabeth down in Jersey and up, but also for Canada and lots of international trade.
So what's the headline here?
Well, the headline is, when the danger of locking it down, it kind of signifies, whether that's in our imaginations or not, but it does remind you, if this city gets cut off from the country.
It's like cutting the head off of an animal.
It's like cutting the head off, but the head survives and starts growing its own body.
Oh my God.
And that's why I say to people when they're like, oh, tried to warn you, New York, and all these morons.
So annoying.
I tell them, I'm like, I don't think you really get it. Like, the way these 50 states work is together. There's different organs. Every state has its purpose, or most states, probably not Rhode Island, but no offense, Rhode Island. But the thing is, no, and I'm sure they do too, every state has its purpose, including interconnecting highways and rail stations.
Right.
And if you cut out one of the major organs, and I would say New York City kind of represents maybe the brain, and possibly the circulatory system. So if you cut that off, and it starts aligning with other countries, well, Trump's not going to just have to worry about getting Greenland and keeping Canada happy. Now you've got a perforated state, which history has shown never survives. The Union can't survive losing something like New York.
Right.
And so that's the point. This should show people how easily America can come in, okay, with less than 50% of the vote total and have control of the brain trust of America. And that scares the hell out of me.
Yeah, terrifying. So one of the things I called attention to, it really fits with what you were just describing, honey, is, at the beginning of the last hour, is why I'm freaked out that he's calling for a state of emergency for a snowstorm. And I'm going to read you a quote. And remember, he's an Islamist Marxist, and his administration are connected to...
which is a oxymoron, but yes.
But here we are. His administration, as you know better than I do, many of the people he chose deliberately, and they have ties to terrorists. They have ties to terrorists who want to do us harm. And just yesterday or the day before, 2 days ago, yesterday, there was a giant event in Times Square of hundreds of Muslims praying. No disrespect to Muslims. It's a very unusual thing to take over Times Square to permit it, because you need a permit to do something like that from the NYPD. And the speakers were saying things like, if reports online are correct, and I haven't confirmed them, we are here to impose Sharia law. We're here to, not just kind of assimilate, become part of America, but to oppose and overcome America and to make New York Muslim. So that is not what immigrants have traditionally come to America to do. So this is a whole new mission of immigrants in New York. And the reason I'm bringing this up, I talked a lot at the beginning of the last hour about 9/11 and what it was like to be, a mile away right after 9/11. And my kids, my family lived through it. Absolutely terrifying, very damaging. The atmosphere was horribly polluted. You could smell dead bodies and, tons of...
because you were like a mile and
a half. Yeah, so close, right? One neighborhood up. But, you were breathing in these, not only the humans, but the toxins and the detritus and the asbestos and, all of it. And people came down with horrible cancers, who were first responders.
They did one of those demonstrations at the memorial site.
What do you mean?
One of these big...
No.
I kid you not. It was like a week ago.
Oh, no.
That's what was reported.
That's so inflammatory.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Well, honey, I read that there was demonstration outside of Auschwitz.
Oh, you're kidding me.
No, that was more of a free Palestine, but also not the time, not the place. Honey, please do not say that because that is illegal. And
it's not illegal.
It's illegal. It's a threat of violence.
It's not a threat of violence. It is not.
It's communication of a threat.
No, it's not. It's a statement. If I say I'm going to shoot them or I want you to shoot them, that's a communication of a threat. Do you say they should be? Is just a statement.
Well, I hear you. I think I don't want to call for violence before.
I didn't call for violence.
Okay.
So I didn't.
All right, baby.
But you know where I stand on that. And I know history. And it always starts off subtle.
No, you're right. Well, I would like to hope that the rule of law could deal with these people, but we don't have the rule of law dealing with these people right now in New York.
They are the law.
They are the law in New York. Especially the Attorney General of New York. He's literally connected to terrorists, as I recall.
Yeah.
Anyway, what I want to say is the reason a declaration of a state of emergency, not even 2 months in, for a snowstorm is so serious. In my book, The End of America, written in 2007, I pointed out that when you impose a state of emergency, you're suspending civil law. That means you suspend the Constitution. You suspend the Fourth Amendment. You suspend due process.
Isn't restricting our travel kind of?
Yes, we have freedom of assembly.
Thank you.
The First
or
Amendment.
Dexter's thing, that's suspension of the
Second Amendment. That's right, but that was before Mamdani. Still bad.
Still though, it's still. I mean,
it's a precedent. You're right.
I mean, the mayor has, first of all, the mayor has very little power in this city. He's a figurehead. But what makes him especially dangerous is how many Democratic Socialists of America and some Party of Socialism and Liberation people, the more violent version of DSA, in the cabinet, in the key
These
areas.
are Marxist groups that you've been researching.
These are pure, straight up communist groups. DSA is massive and growing. There were 10,000 at the beginning of the pandemic. There are 100,000 now.
Oh my gosh.
And they're in every state. Check your state. Go to dsa.usa.org and check your state. You'll see a bunch of chapters, maybe even some people already in your local governments.
Wow.
That's why this affects us.
And
all.
so, and the point Brian is making is a lot of the people Mamdani has tapped are literally from DSA. DSA helped elect him. He ran on the line of the Workers' Party.
They formed
Working
a
Families
PAC
Party.
with CARE,
Oh my God.
which is the Council on Arab and Islamic Relations, which has been in Texas, has been officially seen, what do they call it? Officially designated as a terrorist group.
Oh my God.
Because they're basically the public facing, they're like the Sinn Féin of the Muslim Brotherhood, which has been around since 1918 and is the brain trust behind most massive terrorist operations, even Al-Qaeda and ISIS and lots of them. So,
Oh my God, it's so scary. So I want to read you this quote. This is from the New York City NYC.gov mayor website. Quote, this is why he's justifying why he called a state of emergency. Quote, the safety of New Yorkers is my top priority. As this blizzard moves in, our administration is mobilizing every tool at our disposal around the clock to keep our neighbors safe. This emergency declaration allows us to cut through red tape, meaning the Constitution, the rule of law, your rights. So emergency vehicles, sanitation crews, and essential workers, you heard that phrase before, can move quickly and do their jobs without delay, said Mayor Mamdani. Quote, out of an abundance of caution, schools will be closed tomorrow. We've also opened warming centers in all 5 boroughs to make sure no one is left out in the cold. 19 New Yorkers died courtesy of Mamdani the last time around. Can I just finish this paragraph? I'm urging every New Yorker to please stay home. Have you heard that before? Check in on your neighbors, especially seniors and those who may need extra support. This declaration strengthens our ability, meaning the emergency declaration, to back up our first responders as they put themselves on the line. You've heard this language. It's right out of the COVID lockdown playbook, right? It's a blizzard. And it protects working families, the Working Families Party, from price gouging during the storm. I don't even understand that. In moments like this, we show who we are as a city. We take care of each other. And then it goes on to say about the local state of emergency. The declaration establishes a temporary citywide travel restriction by closing New York City streets, highways, bridges, and tunnels to vehicular traffic from 9 p.m. Sunday ever, and that's in an hour and a half, to 12 p.m. Monday. Most vehicle traffic, including but not limited to commercial trucks, electric bicycles, scooters, and mopeds, is prohibited during that period, except for authorized categories. Exempt vehicles include government and emergency response vehicles, fine, public transit, including MTA buses and Access-a-Ride. So the state gets to move around the streets. We own the streets, by the way. The people own the streets. The people own the sidewalks, but we cannot use them starting in an hour and a half. Vehicles delivering food, fuel, and medical supplies. So his friends Lyft and Uber and DoorDash are not going to see a dent. In fact, they're probably going to make.
Can I address that?
Sure.
In the press conference, they were saying, Hochul was saying, the reason we don't want private vehicles out there is because it's hard to drive and you can't see in front of you. And if there's one crash, it comes things up. Well, those are all private vehicles.
It gets worse, sweetheart. Utility vehicles performing emergency repairs, reasonable. Transportation for essential workers traveling to workplaces. So that's going to be healthcare, right? Just like the frontline workers.
Look who they list as
facilities, pharmacies, grocery stores. I don't know what that means. Gas stations, media outlets, and laundrum. I don't know what that is. What are grocery stores and laundrum?
I don't know what a laundrum is.
Okay, someone didn't copy it. Transportation to hospitals and court facilities. So the courts are going to keep functioning, but the schools are closed. Nonprofit and private organizations providing emergency relief. They can have the streets. And in case you wonder why I'm going bingo, Sam Antar, a really brilliant whistleblower who used to be a felon, these are his words, CFO of Crazy Eddie, is now a whistleblower helping the government, and he's tracked the way nonprofits, like millions, maybe billions. I don't know, billions easily,
yeah, billions.
in New York flows from the government, the city government, to the nonprofits, and then they get out the vote. There's a blurring of political and nonprofit, which is illegal. And then they elect their candidate, and then the cycle begins again with the candidate giving them all this money. And they don't want homelessness to go away. They don't want drug addiction to go away. All the things they're supposed to be fixing, immigrant crises, they don't want it fixed because then the money would go away. But it's absolute money laundering. Antar actually said that a lot of money, it gets stashed offshore. So there's literally money laundering.
Oh.
But my point is, Brian and I literally can't get in a car and get out of the city after 9 p.m. We're trapped here. However, the nonprofits can have the streets. The nonprofits can have the streets.
Yeah.
DoorDash can have the streets. They contribute a lot to the city council and the mayoral race. Lyft and Uber can have the streets, and they're his friends in the nonprofit world. So we are at the mercy of the nonprofits right now. And it's the same kind of circumstance as lockdown, but with the power of the state of emergency. City offices will be closed. Essential employees must report to work. How will they do that? Non-essential employees may telework. Violations of travel restrictions are punishable as a Class B misdemeanor. Talk about that, sweetheart. What is a Class B misdemeanor?
Well, it's a low-level misdemeanor, but it's still a misdemeanor.
Right.
Yeah, that's on
They're going to
record.
criminalize our driving in the street. Are they going to criminalize can we walk in the street without committing a misdemeanor?
And, but here's the thing. Anyone who is in New York City right now and you decide to drive, just, start speaking Spanish and say you don't have an ID. And if you're Black or a woman, you could say, well, I'd have a license. It's just too confusing to figure out how to get one, just like the voting laws tell me.
Let me throw this in. I'm sure you just said something.
Well, I was making a
snarky
joke. It's like if you're Black or you're a woman and you're on our side of history, go drive. And then when they say, hey, where's your license? You need to have a license. Say, well, I'd get one, but I don't know how to find a DMV. How would I do that? Use your own words against them.
So there are going to be warming centers open 24/7, which I guess is good because 19 people, again, froze to death who were homeless. But some of those warming sites are going to be in buses. So he's going to take city buses. They're going to drive around and scoop up homeless people or be available for homeless people. I guess that's better than freezing to death. But they have no bathrooms. And a lot of homeless people are, have big mental health problems. I mean, on our block, there's a guy who's like, what is that drug that you're bent over? It's a new drug.
Trank.
Yeah, I think that's what that is.
Fentanyl and horse tranquilizers.
Yeah. So people with those kinds of problems, psychotic problems, are going to be getting into city buses and urinating, defecating, shooting up, sex, rape,
but I just want
sexual assault.
I do want to say something for when we're reporting after this. That's just window dressing. So he got so much crap for the homeless people dying last time because the program that the previous mayor had was going in, getting the homeless people off the street, whether they want to go or not, and putting them in shelters. The reason why that was important is homeless people, even if they're freezing to death, they don't want to go to a shelter. And we learned this when I used to go with you and your kids to serve soup. I'd talk to the people. They're like, well, we have to move these around because you have to bring the food to them. They're scared of going to government run anything because they think they're not going to be allowed to leave.
Right.
And so he's putting all this stuff up, but those homeless people will not be getting on those buses. I guarantee it.
Well, you may be right, but teenage kids might get on the buses, prostitutes might get on the buses, pimps might get on the buses. I mean, what I'm trying to say is
it's not a good. No.
And there are no bathrooms, right? So when they come back into civilian service, what damage, what stench,
what security? Women can get raped on those buses.
Exactly. That's exactly my point. You've got buses being, it's really like what happened with the shelter.
Katrina?
Well, certainly that, which was a nightmare and crime-ridden and scary. But I was really thinking of the shelters of, those huge facilities for illegal immigrants that you
Right.
reported on, they were very dangerous, and they
Extremely.
people were being trafficked inside, and it was like, mayhem and no rule of law. The same, and it's because something was being set up to be used in a way that it shouldn't. They put illegals in kids' schools near here, in Madison School, not far away from here. And it's so dangerous to appropriate something that is supposed to be a bus that you can take to work and just declare, okay, we're going to, use it to ferry homeless people and whoever, prostitutes, because they're not just, anyone can go, right? So
Well, we'll see.
we'll see. Point
I have
is,
a big red MAGA hat over there. I'm going to see if I could get on the bus.
let me also note here, it says the city. So that now is a persona, right?
Mhm.
The city. It didn't used to be the department of this or the spokesman, but now the city is also mandating that a path of at least 4 feet must be cleared across all sidewalks to accommodate wheelchairs. So
Well,
that
I
then
mean,
they're going to be fining people for that.
I think we should check to see if that law existed, because I'm pretty sure that law existed.
All
I
right.
know it exists in Salem, where I'm responsible for the space in front of my house, because I have an easement that goes to a public sidewalk. So I have to shovel, the sidewalk right to the boundaries of the
Right.
house.
Not my concern. Like, I hear you, and I know that is true. There are a couple of things that worry me about this. One is, it doesn't say, refer to the law. By law, you have to keep your sidewalk cleared. It's not saying that. It's saying the city is mandating. And I don't like that language, because you remember mandates. Mandates, that word has no force of law. It's just an order. It's outside the rule of law. They're not referencing any law. And they're not saying the city is also, requires you by law to keep a path of 4 feet in front of your building, right? It's saying, it's mandating that a path, passive voice, must be cleared across all sidewalks to accommodate wheelchairs. So they're going to be fining people who live up and down our street, right? Just theoretically.
Which
We
kind of
can't-
contradicts the earlier statement of stay inside. What are the wheelchair people doing out in the blizzard?
Exactly. But do you see what's happening? The NGOs are getting priority and authority. They're getting the roads.
I could tell you.
We're getting
I can tell you what I think
responsibilities.
is happening.
What is happening? And remind people about the Bolsheviks shoveling snow, please.
Yeah. So here's what I see happening with this, especially with the private NGOs and all that. Okay. First of all, let's start with the war on landlords.
Mm-hmm.
So the DSA, which helped get Mondami into office, which he was a member of, they didn't just help him. He's a DSA guy. Supposedly they've had a falling out. That's BS. Castro did the same thing with a lot of people. Oh, they fell apart, but they never really did. Gets people's guard down. But with the DSA's big focuses across the country, especially in New York, is what they call tenant rights. But when you actually attend the meetings, like I have, it's about abolishing private property. Okay, abolishing landlords, abolishing private property. Weirdly, not corporate landlords, just local landlords, like small landlords, which is very Maoist. And so there's that. And the other thing is, so that's a hit against landlords. And I guarantee you, there's going to be some people that make sure they get hurt when the sidewalk isn't shoveled. So there could be a lawsuit. So the goal would be to seize that building from the owner. And this is just like in 1918 in Moscow and St. Petersburg. What the Bolsheviks did, that's the communists that took over Russia, took out the Tsar. And what they did is they had all the the landlords, the aristocrats, out there shoveling snow in their fur coats and everything, while the Bolshevik soldiers kind of gathered and would make them do it. So you got little girls and everything out there forced to shovel snow. And this is how they destroyed the rest of the aristocracy. And as years went on, they were forced to do labor. They were forced to bring firewood to the military guys and everything. The aristocrats, a lot of them, the aristocrats just died, and lots of the women were raped. It's just horrible. And the other thing that happened in 1918 too, that's 3 years after 1918 in Moscow, when the Red Cross finally showed up, because there was a humanitarian crisis of starvation after the communists took over, they noticed that the trash had not been picked up for 3 years.
Gosh.
That's historical facts.
That's historical. Well, one of the things
So that's the landlord part. I could get to
Yeah.
the other part, but what I want to talk about the NGOs.
Yeah, let's talk about
if
that.
I can jump in.
Please jump back.
So what I noticed is when I went to apply for the shoveling job just to see what it involved, I couldn't. It says that you have to make an appointment and all this. They also say that you have to have your social security card, and 2 forms of ID, which is funny because I want to go there just with the camera and see how many Black, brown, and women are there. Because according to all the Democrats and the liberals all over the country who are against the FACE Act, they're too stupid. Well, how are they going to have all these things then? So I want to make sure everyone there has 3 forms of ID. Like, I don't know where my social security card is. Are you kidding me? It was a paper thing.
You know how to get a replacement.
Like I got to scan my eyeball or something like that.
Well, it's not difficult to get your birth certificate.
Yeah, we'll just go online and figure it out. Right. But I thought that was interesting. But the NGO thing is especially interesting because what that reminds me of is kind of like the Black Panther food pushes. So what's been happening here with communists across America, and there's 31 different active groups, DSA being the largest right now. They're starting to lean back on their predecessors. Okay, how did they gain numbers? And they did this
so they're looking at their own history.
They did this through food banks.
Yeah.
Okay, so what food banks does, it gives you touch points with the people, because knocking and canvassing doesn't work.
That's right.
And if TPUSA and the GOP are listening, your annoying robotexts certainly don't work. But what they're doing is, here, I'm the one feeding you. And it comes packaged in DSA Marxist propaganda.
Right.
This is the same thing that the Biden administration tried to do with the COVID vaccine door knocking campaign. All of those NGOs were pollsters and canvassers. So this is how they up their recruitment. And you're going to see a massive amount of recruitment after this storm.
That's right.
But this is how they do it. But it's also how they create their network. So the reason ICE has so many problems in Minnesota were these food banks, because it's a way of communicating without being intercepted. You're delivering food to illegals, and then you're like, hey, here's your food. There's 5 ICE trucks on their way. Get the hell out of here, that sort of thing. It's typical revolutionary guerrilla style of tactics. And it should alarm everyone who's been in the military or knows military history, because they're practicing logistics in a very organized way.
That's how I feel about this blizzard. I feel like it's going to all be fine, and we're going to get through it fine, and not many people will probably be hurt, and it won't look that bad, but it feels like a dry run, and also like acculturating us. Like, what is this stay indoors, stay indoors?
I think this
it's one thing to say be careful if you go outside, but like stay indoors, don't go out. It's up to me if I go outside in a blizzard.
Right. Well, this is they're going. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. They're going to try the same playbook where people just go along with it.
Right.
Okay. I don't think it's going to work this time, and I think it's up to people like me and you and other people we know in the city to make sure it doesn't work.
But we can't. We literally can't drive because we're committing a misdemeanor if we, get in a car.
Well, we can't drive because our car is upstate.
Well, I know, but this is hypothetical.
So I mean, we're not driving anyways.
No, but hypothetically, I don't want to be told by the state that I cannot get into a vehicle on roads that my tax dollars pay for.
Well, we'll figure out a way to pursue that. But what I'm saying is, I think a lot of people won't even go outside. Okay, so now you have these NGOs delivering food and blankets and all this. They're also doing a census.
Yes.
When they knock on that door. That's how they do it.
Right. That's so creepy.
Yeah, it's very creepy. The communists did it. They all do it. It's the same playbook.
What's the point of that?
Well, the point of that is it's brand recognition. That's why you see so many stickers around town here. DSA. And when people see
it makes communism look good. Well, they brought me a burrito.
They called it democratic socialist because they don't want people to think of them as communists. A lot of Democrats think they're Democrats. A lot of communists think they're socialists. But no, what it does, it's brand recognition.
Mhm.
And the brand is the yellow and kind of purplish blue, which is their yellow, red, and purplish blue. Well, these are, the last two are the communist China colors. You saw it all over Zoran's thing.
Yeah.
But what that does is, a better example of it is, this is not so much communism as it is good marketing, where there's a great movie with Eddie Murphy called The Distinguished Gentleman. He's a crook, and his name is something Thomas Jefferson, because his grandmother was very patriotic. And the incumbent, this white guy played by James Garner, had this almost the same name, except for the first initial. He dies. And so Eddie Murphy runs on the.
I can't.
No. Listen. Okay, you gotta let me finish.
Okay,
when I finish,
yes, baby.
This beautiful thing called context is created.
Okay, go ahead.
Then you'll understand. So basically, talking about brand recognition, Eddie Murphy wins the race, not because he has any experience or anyone even knows who he is. He makes a point not to use his picture. But as these old people are filling in the ballot boxes, or people going to work just want to get their vote in, they go, who do we normally vote for? Oh, Jefferson Johnson. Oh, okay, there he is. And so that's what they do. So when people are familiar with the DSA brand name, they're like, well, those are the people that deliver us food. They're all over our neighborhood. We just vote for them. They're Democrats. Look at that. That's how they do it. So I think that's another part of it. This is kind of a get out the vote type thing, which we're really big on. Also, lets them identify.
Can I ask you a question?
One more.
All right.
Lets them identify conditions that tenants are living in, which they can then rat out to the Department of Housing in New York City. So it's an intel sweep as well.
I bet they're also checking where the Jews are. I really do. I mean, they're in Brighton. They're going door to door, and like
in England.
In England.
Okay, yeah.
And
I was gonna say they're not going to do that.
Keeping track of where the Jews are. Seriously, it's like 1931.
It's Brooklyn, though.
What's your point?
It's pretty easy to find Jewish people.
But I mean, my point, it's actually quite serious.
I know it's serious.
I mean, the Nazis, created, and actually very interesting that IBM helped them do this, an early version of the pre-computer punch card, but tracking the Jews, figuring out where they were, literally having a map of the Jews, a list of the Jews, was really foundational to what the Nazis accomplished later. And right now, you can't tell who people are, in regards to Sharia law, right? Or in regards to Israel-Palestine. You can't tell based on New York, the census in New York State. I don't have a yellow star outside our door. But if NGOs are coming knocking, they're getting information about all of us, is my point. There, you can create a more detailed surveillance society. So one other thing I wanted to clear.
Well, wait, there's one other on the surveillance part.
Yeah.
They said Uber is allowed to drive around.
Right.
Well, last night we had, I was very honored to have Trevor Loudon come to our house, and we had dinner and we talked for hours all night long, all three of us. Trevor Loudon is the foremost communist expert. He's from New Zealand. Has a great movie called The Enemies Within. You could go to trevorloudon.com. It's LOUDON.com, Trevor. Excellent. If you want to learn about communism today in the modern age, it's not archaic. He connects the past with right now. You can't go wrong. So he was telling us that what's happening in LA that he found out is the Uber drivers are being used to identify where the Jewish homes are.
I knew this would happen.
Yeah. And most of them are like Uzbek types and Pakistani types out there. And they're keeping a log. And I had it happen to me the other day.
What are they going to do with the log of the Jews in LA?
Well, I mean, I would imagine horrible terrorist attacks
or
communists aren't big on terror attacks. They do it when the clock is ticking, but the communist style is more of the slow boil. So, or attrition. So what they'll do is if the communists are running it, then it'll be more identify Jewish homeowners and then turn their neighborhood into a flood zone. And then up the insurance, just pick away at their profitability.
Wow.
But
Sharia communism is going to be a whole
but it's a red-green alliance. And the thing is, the green part of the Red Alliance has no intention of staying with the communists, just
Right.
like the communists have no intention of keeping the green in power.
And the green just means
Muslims.
Islamist Muslim. Yeah.
And so-
not like, no offense to Muslims, but
I
these
don't
are-
care. They could be offended all they want. So, I mean, if they're going to get offended by color, it'd be one of many things they're offended by. I let my dog smell everyone on the street it can. And it's just hilarious. And I always make a part to walk near the mosque too.
Sweetheart.
Why? There's nothing bad about dogs that I can find in the Quran.
No, it's not that, but we don't want to create a situation in America in which there's outright religious antagonism.
It's
you know?
here.
Yeah. Okay.
We're there.
Yeah, you're right.
Seriously,
You're
we're
right.
just talking about hunting Jews.
Right, you're right. You're right.
I
You're
think
right,
we're
you're
way
right,
beyond that.
You're right. You're right.
So why, you got to make yourself a hard target and make it difficult for them. But the point is, the real danger there is the communists, what they do, and they did this in the USSR. They use the Muslims. There were 25,000 mosques across Soviet territory in 1925. By 1982, there were about 500 mosques. So what they do is they eventually absorb them, and then in state-run schools, they don't let them teach religion. And they just phase it out.
Right.
And Islam in the USSR in the 80s, it was known as like the religion of old men.
Right.
Because it was fading away. In communist China, they're worse. They just jail them all because they have halal organs, and their number one customer is Saudi Arabia. And then they just bulldoze the mosques. That's it.
Oh my God.
So, but on the other hand, the Muslims, they have different ideas. And if the communist college kids say, blow them up a little, and blow them up nicely, whatever, they go crazy,
Who's
and
they in this
the
sentence?
radical Muslims. They can never control them. And they're usually, the communists usually spin them up. This happened in China. Then there's terrorist attacks. And then the communists will use that to imprison them and eradicate them.
Right. So you think in the Red-Green Alliance, ultimately the communists will take over, that the Islamists are just kind of useful assets to the communists?
Yeah, because communists creates an organized slave labor population. So even the rich deep pockets in Qatar and Saudi Arabia, they don't like radical Islam over there. It's a tool. And it's never happens in Saudi Arabia for the most part, you might notice. But they like the communist system is great because it's organized. It is slave labor. And just like this shoveling is slave labor.
Right.
They're going to get paid, but how long is it going to take?
Well, but also like that directive, the city mandates that the sidewalks be clear. I'm just trying to visualize.
But not only the sidewalks, building owners, we forgot this part. Building owners are responsible for the bus stop.
I did talk about it.
If it's adjacent to them. I'm like, what the hell do we pay taxes for?
And also, I was saying before you joined us, what if you're a disabled shop owner? What if you're a woman? What if you're...
How about if you get SNAP benefits, you're out there with a shovel for free? That's what I say. If you're getting SNAP benefits and unemployment benefits, next time
that would be popular.
You want to keep your SNAP benefits, shovel some snow. Plain and simple. We'll shovel our walk.
I never thought I'd see the day when I would be nodding quietly.
Why not?
No, I hear you.
They're not working. They were healthy enough to swim across the river, as a lot of lefties like to say. They trekked all the way here miles. Great. Well, then they can pick up some snow.
All right.
They're able-bodied.
Sadly, we've run out of our hour. It was a good rant, baby.
Because honestly, it's like when I'm in Brooklyn, I'm so surrounded by them. It just drives me crazy. But I'm also surrounded.
That's really like
the dirtbag socialist liberal communist losers and any dirtbag Muslims that align with them. And any seculars that align with them too. But what does make me happy are my brothers and sisters at Chabad. Love them. I'm an honorary Chabadnik. I love it.
Thanks.
They called me a holy man the other day.
I know. They don't know you that well, sweetheart.
Well, they don't have to know me. So
maybe you are. Maybe you're a stealth saint.
Some kid called me a kike the other day.
Are you kidding me?
He called me a kike.
That's really
but he forgot to shut off his French keyboard. So it had all these weird accent marks.
Right.
So I gave him tips on editing. And then and I said, by the way, I'm actually Catholic.
Brian's Catholic.
And then someone said, "You're a fake Catholic." I said, "Roman, actually."
That's funny.
So And she's a kite.
I am a kite. Yes. All right. Well, that was fun. I hope they don't knock on our door and, come get us. I hope that they don't.
I hope they do. Bring it. Seriously.
Yeah.
I'm like Psycho in Stripes,
Okay. I do think it's a test run. I did want to say one thing before we
I think it's moving. I think it's just war of attrition. They're going to take a little more rights.
That's
every time.
true. I agree with you. Can I finish my sentence?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you.
And another thing. Go ahead.
I wanted to tell you there's a section in this press release about prisons and Rikers Island. And, they're making sure they're reassuring everyone that prisoners will be warm enough. They've got enough blankets and so on. However, they do refer to the situation of being in prison in New York City as people in our care. That's how they refer to prisoners.
I've heard that before.
Oh, really?
Many years ago.
All right.
I mean, I had brothers in prison, so they had signs up.
It's like a euphemism to me.
Well, it's so you don't get sued.
Oh.
It's like, look how nice we are. They're in our care.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to honor Sherry Mientus, who said even homeless people don't want to go to shelter because they get robbed of their belongings.
Exactly.
Happens all the time, even by the workers. That's so
It's
sad.
so true.
All right. Well, let's trust that we get through the next 48 hours just fine, but keep an eye, New York, on your liberties. Think about whether you want the state to tell you where you can go, if you can get out of the city, if you can go upstate to see your family, if you could get the children out of the city. This is, something I never forgot, being a mother in New York after 9/11. And I was saying before you joined us that I saved up all my pennies to get a place outside the city as a broke single mom, because I never, ever, ever wanted to be in a situation where I had children I was responsible for and no way to get out of a dangerous situation on an island. So I hope it isn't a trial run. It does look like one. You guys are awesome. I really want to thank our sponsors who make these podcasts possible. And you should consider this. Most people think inflation is the biggest threat to their savings, Brian, but
it's not.
It's not. There's something just as dangerous. Most banks never talk about it. It's the gap between what inflation is doing and what your bank is paying you. Mm-hmm. Right now, the average savings account pays under 0.5% when your CDs barely do better. Meanwhile, inflation is still running several times higher than that. And that difference acts like a hidden tax on your money. Every year, your dollars quietly lose buying power, even though your balance looks the same. It's really depressing. And policy doesn't help, especially not in communist New York. A weaker dollar may boost exports, but it also pushes up the cost of imports, energy, and everyday goods. That's one reason why assets like gold and silver have surged. So what's a saver supposed to do? Some people are moving into short-term treasury bills. Others focus on dividend growth stocks that increase payouts over time. There's another approach that doesn't get talked about as much. It's a long-established company operating decades before AI became a buzzword that's now positioned to benefit from the AI boom in a disciplined way. Over the last 25 years, this approach has delivered an average return of 29% without chasing ultra-volatile tech stocks or risky speculation. If you would like to learn more about what some investors are calling the 29% account, you can find the details at the link, because when it comes to your savings, playing it safe may be the riskiest move of all. So go to www.secret29account.com. Again, that's www.secret29account.com. And I also want to just really thank American Alternative Assets. Brian called up a screen that shows that gold futures have gone from...
No, this is gold.
Yeah, this is gold, right? It went from... it looks like 1800,
1728 in 2021.
In 2021, 1700-ish.
Up for today,
and then
on the same day, it is today 5,000.
5,000. So it went up 3,433.90%. Right, in the last 5 years.
3,000 in actual.
Oh, okay.
3,400 actual, and then 198.7%
in the last 5 years.
You won't get on any stock.
No, indeed, or even investing in real estate. Yeah. So if there are a lot of crazy cowboy, Wild West companies out there offering gold and silver or investment in gold and silver. American Alternative Assets and its CEO Shannon Davis, we really respect them. They're very transparent. They're accountable. They answer your questions. We're proud to have them. If you want to not miss that crazy upper right hand, there's no way to foretell the future, but as things get more and more unstable, like communists are in charge of the financial capital of New York City and saying you can't go outside, do
the
business.
first thing Lenin did, right?
What? Oh, crash the economy.
No. He stole all the gold out of the banks.
Well, all the more reason to get your gold
Well,
or
good
silver.
thing they don't really keep gold in banks. So
Right.
that means they'll take the money.
But you can physically get get and keep your own gold and silver with American Alternative Assets. Can I just tell them where to go, baby? And then we have to let them sign off.
Definitely.
It's time for you to make me a wonderful martini because we're in here for
I
that.
can't make a martini.
You can't make because we don't have the stuff that we
No,
can
I
go
don't have the
outside.
stuff.
Or we'll get arrested.
Yeah, but I know some Slovak. He's running a black market of green olives.
We can call DoorDash. They'll deliver a martini.
They'll deliver. I'll have my yarmulke when I answer, and the guy will be like, "Oh, I just need to take a picture to make sure I delivered it." And I'll be like, "Great." And then when he takes the picture out of my Glock, I'll be like, "Make sure you get it all in the frame."
Okay, so go to American Alternative Assets. It's www.cloutgold.com. Go to cloutgold.com and they will answer all your questions about investing in gold and silver. And you can physically keep your gold and silver wherever in a safe, hidden away. And you'll have it with you if you need to flee to the non-Marxist town where they're not locking you in when there's snow.
And I just want to say, for the sake of our sponsor, I wasn't disparaging gold. What I was saying is Lenin rated what was
No, I get it. He saw the value.
So if that happens, and it's happening here, the value of the dollar will continue to shrink. Even though we control the value, we don't control all of it.
Right.
And they're trying to get rid of the dollar.
Yeah, baby, that's a whole other conversation for another episode.
Oh,
we've got to say goodbye.
Life is one big episode, darling.
Yes, it is. Thank you so much for joining us.
We'll be here for the next 8 hours.
No, that's
not true.
Not true. But you can support this independent reporting, these conversations, my podcast, Outspoken, Brian's podcast, Investigate Everything, by going over to Substack and subscribing to Outspoken. Please become a paying subscriber if you can. It takes a whole little team to get this stuff out to you. That's my mug. And thank you so much. It's a good mug. And go to Brian's, which is Investigate Everything.
Yeah, just go to dailycloud.io and you can find all the shows on the homepage. And definitely check out. I'm going to give a shout out to Drew.
Oh yeah,
Drew Allen had him on the other day, and he
was very well received.
He's an inspiration for all millennials.
Yeah, and if you want to support independent journalism and BillCam and Legisector, which let you change bills, follow bills, state and federal bills from your phone, again, technology costs money to build and make freely available to everyone to try it, and a very affordable. $3.99 in one case and $11.99 in the other case. Monthly fee to use it all you want, and keep an eye on the people representing us. Go to dailycloud.io and subscribe. Go over to legisector.com and subscribe. You do not want to be at the mercy of these people.
Oh, we do have to go. I got a
baby.
text from the comrades, and apparently it's my shift for shoveling. So
yes.
I'll see you later.
All right. See you later, everyone. Let's make it through. Bye-bye. Thanks for joining us.